Hi, and welcome to Red Cup Conversations. I'm your host, Kris Poliquin. This is a production of Red Apples Media. Today, we're going to be speaking with attorney Michael Brehne of the law offices of Michael B. Brehne, and we're going to discuss some facts on storm damage, insurance policies, and in general, when you should or shouldn't call an attorney. So, Michael, thank you for coming on the show today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, you've been a guest with me for a while back, and I wanted to have you come back on and maybe give us updates. But before we get there, can you tell our audience, if they don't already know, a little bit about you and how you got to where you're at now?
Sure. I grew up in New Jersey, and I went to the University of Florida, where I studied criminology and law. During my education, I became a sworn law enforcement officer with the Florida Highway Patrol, and then afterwards with the Orlando Police Department. And when I was at the Orlando Police Department, I had a lot of roles there. I was in patrol. I was a field training officer. I was a member of the emergency response team. And then after 3 years, I was promoted to detective, and I worked in the undercover narcotics unit. So I did that for 2 years, and while I did that, I applied to law school.
And that's already a heavy schedule. I mean, really, that's a pretty phenomenal career. Now, how long was that window of time?
6 years. Well, 7 years.
Wow.
7 years. Yeah.
Okay. So then you went to law school.
I did, and fortunately, I graduated, and I was on the moot court. I was on law review. I graduated close to the top of my class, and then I was faced with the idea of what kind of law am I going to practice? You know, the field's so vast, and I thought first and foremost, I want to represent people, a person or a family. I don't want to do corporate work. I don't want to do insurance defense.
Right.
I wanted to work with people because I felt that if I'm one-on-one with a client, I'll have more of myself invested in the case than if it's just a corporate mill, and to where you're dealing with so many different people, and
Sure.
You just don't get the same feeling, you don't get the same motivation. So that's why I decided to start my practice in the area of personal injury, mostly car accidents and slip and falls started out. And then I started developing a niche practice in insurance litigation, where I represent people against their insurance companies. So kind of fits in with where I started.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
And, I developed a great practice doing that. We do car accidents, motorcycle accidents, slip and falls, and we also do, for our insurance cases, I represent doctors and medical offices to get their bills paid by insurance companies that won't pay their bills. And,
Really?
Yeah, and I represent people who, let's say, when you're injured in a car accident, not only do you get medical benefits, but you also get household benefits. For instance, if you can no longer cut the grass, your car insurance has to pay 60% of whatever costs that you have for things that you can no longer do, like cleaning your house or cutting your grass. And sometimes the insurance companies won't pay it. So I'll represent the person against the insurance company and get those expenses paid. I do the same thing for homeowners insurance. Everybody knows we get a lot of storms in Florida. We get hurricanes, windstorms, hailstorms, any type of storm that comes that damages your property, your home. If there's a leak, it'll do the interior, it'll do the walls and the furniture, stuff like that. A lot of times the insurance companies are not very up and up when they value your claim.
Of course not.
Yeah.
And see, now that's a concern of us people, right? Because I know the insurance companies, okay, they're there to make money.
They are.
No harm, no foul. I totally get the concept.
But they're also there to provide a service.
Correct.
And they also, when you enter into a contract with an insurance company, they have duties and responsibilities that they must follow, and they're all laid out in the policy. And it's my job to hold them to their word. When they put that in the policy, I'm going to make sure my client gets the benefit of those terms in the policy.
Let me ask you, how often is this a problem? I mean, because we see the commercials every day, right? It just seems like they would have snapped out of it. Is it honest mistakes, or is there some kind of unscrupulous determination to, I don't want to say short their clients, but
Well, you can.
in your opinion, is it intentional, or is it just the ignorance of maybe the customers who just don't know to follow through with their policies?
Okay,
with their insurance. Do you understand what I'm asking?
Well, I think if you're asking me, do the insurance companies, are they evil to begin with? I would say no.
Okay.
Okay.
And yes, that's what I was asking.
Yeah. But if you ask me, do they put profits over people? Then I would say yes. So what the whole setup, for insurance is to collect premiums, build your organization. But when people make claims, you got to pay them out. I say you need to pay them out fairly. They say they need to pay them out economically. So they make these predetermined calculations on certain claims they just won't pay, certain claims they'll short, and other claims are just going to flat out deny. And they've done the math. They calculate,
Sure.
and they reserve money to pay the claims that they want to pay, but they also know there are going to be consequences for the claims that they don't pay. But they did the math, and they know that the consequences for paying claims after an attorney gets involved is still much less than if they would have had paid all the claims for people who did not get lawyers.
Ah, understood. And I'd like to touch base on storm season. You already brought it up, and the insurance companies, as well as the policyholders, are already starting to cringe, right? Now you have a department, for lack of a better term, on storm damage as well, right?
Yes, we do. And we work with engineers, roofing specialists, and we are the ones that you could call when your insurance company denies your roof claim because they told you it wasn't properly installed. They didn't use the right materials. Somebody walked on it. It wasn't the hail. Somebody walked on your roof and broke all those tiles. I mean, these are the most common things. As a matter of fact, most of my cases, I get 3 or 4 of these excuses.
Really?
Yeah, and you failed to maintain your roof as well, so now we're not going to pay. Well, these are the common denials. And remember, insurance companies, they're trained. Deny, defend, and delay. So they have the 3 Ds, and they employ them day in and day out. So you ask me how prolific is all this? It's very.
Yes.
Most people will have issues with their insurance companies. There's very few times when an insurance company will come to your house and go, don't worry, we'll pay for everything. If this was a call-in show, I would challenge somebody listening to me to call me up and say, yes, my insurance company came into my house and said, we're going to pay for everything.
Oh, no.
I haven't seen it.
I've never heard of it.
Okay.
Oh, no, I'm not arguing by
Yeah.
no means. I just think it's a shame because you can go years and years and years and decades. And we're talking roofs right now, right? You can go decades without any issue. And the moment you need to call in and collect on on the policy that you've done your part in, it's always a hassle. And I'm speaking from experience because a couple years back, I had a tree fall in my garage. Fortunately, it was covered because there's some. Actually, you may even be able to speak to that, but detached garage versus a part of the house. And a lot of people don't even realize that their detached garage isn't even covered. And like I said, fortunately mine was, but I didn't even know that was a thing until I looked in my policy.
Yeah, there's okay, and you said the magic words. What's the policy say?
Yeah.
So sometimes the policy say that if that's called an other structure, it'd be like if you had a shed in the backyard, something like that.
Right.
Some say that it must be an attached other structure, and by attached, their definition of attached and the legal or judicial interpretation may be different. So, for instance, I had a case where we had a structurally detached, but they connected it by fence. Now, is it attached or not? I say yes, and I won, of course. Because,
really?
yeah,
Okay.
You
Well, it
take
makes
the
sense.
regular definition of attached. They were saying that it had to be built upon.
Right.
Where does it say built upon? It says attached. And so you win. But these are the things that you're faced with when you make your insurance claim.
So, look, it's pretty frustrating for most people who go through this process, okay? And I'll probably ask this several times throughout the show. When should someone call an attorney? What's the signs for, I'm talking like storm damage, a home, right, where insurance company problems. When should a policyholder realize I need help?
Well, your house was damaged by a storm. I think you should call a lawyer. A lot of people.
Really?
Yeah.
So, okay.
And I'll tell you why. Because from the second you make that phone call, what do you hear every time you make a phone call? This line is being recorded for customer service, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Every word that you say when you pick up that phone is going to be on record. God forbid you should say something different when the adjuster comes to your house. Now what are you? You're a liar. You have to have backup from the beginning. If you've got damage to your home, call a lawyer and make sure that you're filing the claim properly, that you're saying accurate information, that you're not guessing on the phone, that you are certain when you say this happened, whatever it was, describe it, when it happened, describe it, and then how it happened. Well, the windstorm from last night or the windstorm from last week. You know, you don't get immediate flooding in your house. A lot of times the water will come in through your roof. It'll lay in your attic until it's, too much, and then the weight of it'll start dripping down the walls, or you'll get things from the ceiling. And that doesn't have, sometimes it's 6-8 weeks after a storm. And so when people call up the insurance company, they say, I don't know. Well, one of the prerequisites to get a claim has got to be a sudden and accidental loss. Not, I don't know. It happened 6 weeks ago. That's not sudden and accidental.
It's an unfortunate period of time for you to make a phone call because your mind is already boggled. You're not focused, at least for me, I wasn't focused on playing any game.
Right.
Right? I was like, listen, I know I need to call you. I don't even know what I need to tell you. What's going on? And you're right. They're, again, I know they're not evil, but they're listening and they're making sure that their checks are in their boxes.
Of course.
And when I had to make a call on my claim, I was in unfamiliar territory.
I get it. So a lot of times if you call an attorney's office like mine, I will get you some resources to come to you so that you can analyze the claim better and you'll have a better understanding of what your responsibilities are and what can be done for you, what can't be done for you, because sometimes policies have exclusions and they're real. And if you fall within that exclusion, I can't help. Remember, I will hold them to that contract, but they will hold you to the contract.
Sure. Now, if someone did want to get, if someone did want to get information, where can they contact you?
Well, we've got a website. It's BrehneLaw.com, or we also have StormClaimAttorney.com. They're together, but it's easier to remember. StormClaimAttorney.com, and we've got resources on the website, and we also have chat features. And please call the office. We have 4 attorneys and a large staff. We'll take your call. We'll answer your question quickly, and if it turns out that you need our help, we'll get you signed up and start representing you.
So, Michael, approaching storm season, what's the most types of damage and problems that you've come across with people and their insurance companies?
Problems as in what type of issues?
Is it generally flooding, tree limbs falling? Because tree limbs specifically, there's a lot of questions as to what happens if my neighbor's tree falls on my house.
Right. So the most common forms of damage would be wind damage to the roof that turns into leaking. So what happens is you get these forces from the wind, they uplift on your roof during the storm, the wind-driven rain gets into those openings, comes down your walls, soaks your floors, your furniture. Now you've got the most typical damage.
Sure.
The next typical would be during hailstorms, you're going to get hail damage. If you've got tile roofs, they're going to get cracked, and your tiles are going to crack, and then it's going to leave opening for water to get in there. So those are the most common ones. Now, when you talk about trees falling and branches falling, those are actually easier cases because it's really hard to argue when you've got a tree in your garage, what happened.
Sure.
It wouldn't be a lack of maintenance.
No, no. Or could it?
Well, maybe
Could
on the
it be
neighbor,
because
maybe
of,
on the
like,
neighbor's
tree
part.
claim,
Maybe on the neighbor's part. So what would happen is you've got an insurance policy that says we're going to pay for any sudden and accidental loss to your property. Tree falling on your house qualifies. They're going to pay for that. But now they're going to want their money back. So who are they going to want their money back from? They're going to want it back from your neighbor. Because maybe your neighbor didn't trim the trees. Maybe maybe the tree was dead on the inside. Your neighbor didn't know it, and then it didn't take much wind to knock it over. So what they do is this process called subrogation, where they'll pay you, but then they will file a lawsuit against your neighbor to collect the money that they paid you.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, okay. Well, Michael, we need to take a quick break, but when we return, I'd like to continue our conversation because there's a lot of other things I'd like to ask you about.
Fantastic.
All right, we'll be back in a moment. Hi, and welcome back to Red Cup Conversations. Again, I'm your host, Kris Poliquin, and this is a production of Red Apples Media. Before the break, we were talking to attorney Michael Brehne on, God, quite a lot, actually, from insurance company to storm damage to some of the services that you provide in those instances. And I'd kind of like to shift gears a little bit and talk about some of the other facets of your law firm. But before we start getting into the weeds, I've had a lot of questions on what exactly are assignment of benefits and where's the confusion nowadays?
All right. So assignment of benefits is a document that transfers the right to the claim to a third party. So for instance, you have a storm claim, you know you have roof damage. A roofing company will come to your house and say, yeah, we've inspected the house. You do have storm damage. This is how much it's going to cost to fix it. If you sign this assignment of benefits, we will handle the claim for you. We will call the insurance company. We will meet with them. We will show them what we found. We'll negotiate the prices for you. And when we get paid, we're going to put the roof on your house.
And that's happening, right?
What's the problem?
Right.
Okay. What has happened is in some instances, and I would say it's a very small percent, 10% max, there are some companies, a lot of big companies, that will come out and they'll take the assignment of benefits, which really means now they own the claim. It's no longer the household's claim, it's now the roofing company's claim.
Okay.
Now, when they take the benefit, they also have obligations, and sometimes they don't comply with their obligations. They either don't order the material or they abandon the job, and then when you call it a complaint, there's nobody to complain to because it's not your claim anymore. It's their claim. So that could be a problem. Then there's some instances where somebody will sign up with roofer A on an assignment and then come to find out roofer B is either better or will do it for less money. And when they go to say, hey, I want roofer B to handle my house now, roofer A says, not your claim. It's mine. That's
Gotcha.
bad. That's bad. But that's bad customer service. It's not bad legally.
Sure.
It's bad customer service. So what's happened is the insurance companies have complained, and quite frankly, I think they complained mostly because you're dealing with professionals on your claim. Remember I told you in the beginning that you could call up and you can make a mistake, you could say something silly on the phone,
Yes.
and then they use that against you? Well, these professionals don't do that. So when you give an assignment of benefits to a restoration company or a roofing company, they know what to say. They know how to get your claim processed. So it's a huge benefit for the homeowner. And they're not going to be able to be played with as much. So insurance companies, what, do you think they like that? No, they don't like that. Because now they're paying top dollar for claims because these professionals know the value of the claim. The homeowner doesn't.
Right.
So that's why they attack the assignment of benefits. So there's a statute now that says if you want to use an assignment of benefit, these are all the things you have to do, and these are all the things you can no longer do. So to me, it's a complete constitutional violation. It's a violation.
Really?
Yeah, it's a violation of equal protection because they're treating this homeowner who gave an assignment much differently than that homeowner that did not, and that's not fair. That's not how it works.
Point.
It's not how it should work. And also, they've put so many restrictions that they're not even rationally related to the claim process. They're trying to cut the lawyers out, so they reduce the attorney's fees, the ability to get attorney's fees. They switched the fee provision that if you don't get a certain amount, the homeowner's going to have to pay the insurance company's attorney's fees.
Yeah, but now it's gotten so complicated. How can you go through this without an attorney?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Now you need an attorney. Don't sign an assignment of benefits. Most companies won't take one anymore. Hire a lawyer instead, and we'll take care of it from there.
Okay. Now, I'm going to ask you again, if someone did have a question, where can they get in contact with you?
Well, they could try our website, which is breenlaw.com or stormclaimattorney.com, or call the office, 407-645-2195, and we'll answer your questions.
Awesome. Now, again, you deal with a lot at your law firm. Can we talk about your biker law? Because that's almost like a passion project, hobby, career thing that you were able to manage. That's got to be great for you because you're an avid motorcyclist, correct?
Yes, that's true. So I grew up around motorcycles. My uncle let me ride his first motorcycle when I was probably 12 or 13. I went to what I called mini bike camp in New Jersey, where I would spend summers riding mini bikes all afternoon on trails, and I just loved it. And, life takes you in different directions, but I reconnected with my motorcycle past about 8-10 years ago, and I can't stop. And so what I've done is I've brought my experience as a rider and my experience as a law enforcement officer. I did hundreds of accident investigations.
Right.
And I put those together, and I've got this little enjoyable section of my practice called 911 Biker Law. And we concentrate on representing motorcyclists that are injured in accidents. And it's very important to have somebody with my background, both in accident investigation and motorcycle riding, because I think I said it on another show, I can see the angles. When I'm riding my bike and I need to maneuver out of a situation or get into a curve, I'm always looking at the angles. What's the safest way to do it? How can I get in and out, et cetera? Well, I use the same techniques when I look at a case. Most of the time, motorcyclists are found at fault in accidents that they did not cause.
I was going to ask that because that seems to be I'm not a motorcyclist, but
it's a law enforcement prejudice. And again, I have a background in law enforcement, and prejudices in law enforcement sometimes help enforcement, but a lot of times it's counterproductive. Well, with motorcyclists, they don't listen to them. If I told you how many times the motorcyclists will tell me they were in the hospital and the trooper came in and essentially put a ticket between their toes.
Really?
They don't ask them a question. They just come in, they say you're at fault, and leave, which is awful. So when you come to me, I'm going to investigate the accident. I'm going to know what happened, and I'm going to be able to prove it. So if you came to me, I would go to court and I would win that ticket. And then when I'm done with that, then I'm going to go win your case against the insurance company. Because just because the police officer either did a poor investigation or used some of his personal prejudices against you, that doesn't mean you're not going to win.
Right. Your practical experience in law enforcement has got to be worth its weight in gold.
It is.
It's got to be. Because now you've lived, not just been on both sides, you've actually lived it.
Yeah.
And well, for me, again, it builds confidence.
Yeah,
it's like, okay, the guy's got to know what he's talking about. He's been on both sides. Or so when an attorney tells you law enforcement may do this or so on and so forth, it's not really a guess. You have experience. Yeah. All right. So we were talking about biker law. You obviously do car accidents and auto accidents as well. What can you tell our audience? Are there any general rules of thumb, do's and don'ts? And I've asked you in the past, but I've always been told if I get into a car accident, do not move your car. And then you have law enforcement come up and say, you need to move your car. And people are like, but do we have picture? I mean, what do you recommend people do at the scene of an accident, whether minor or serious?
Okay. If you're involved in an accident, the absolute first thing you need to be concerned with is your health and safety. So if you are injured and you know you're injured, you've got incredible searing pain in your neck or your back, and that's not how you felt right before the accident, you probably shouldn't move. You probably shouldn't get out of your car.
Right.
You should probably stay in the car and wait for EMS to take you out with the proper support. That's my thought.
It makes sense.
If you're not, overwhelmed with pain and you feel as if maybe, you got lucky, a lot of that's adrenaline.
I was about to say, once that gets kicking, people can do things that they probably shouldn't.
It will mask pain. We know this.
Exactly.
Okay. So if the adrenaline's kicked in, which I'm sure it has, you'll get out, you'll think you're okay, and then you'll look at your car and you'll see, well, your car's smashed up. But the question you need to ask next is, can I move it out of the road? Why do you want to move it out of the road? You want to move it out of the road so it doesn't get hit again, or so you don't get hit.
Right.
Now, some people are concerned with, they need the proof. We all have cell phones. All our cell phones have cameras. Take a quick picture and get your car off the road.
Gotcha.
That'll
Gotcha.
keep you from being involved in a second accident. And believe me, I've had those cases too. So once you've done that, if the other person involved in the accident is obviously injured, you call 911. If they're not obviously injured, you might want to ask them if they're okay. Do they need, ambulance or anything like that? And then make the appropriate call to 911. When you're there, try not to get into discussions with the other party in the accident. It's not going to be helpful. If somebody says something to you spontaneously like, oh, I'm sorry, I was trying to change the station on the radio, I didn't see you, keep that in mind. Remember that. Write it down if you have to, especially if it's a quote, and then give that to your lawyer. But I would not debate the person on the side of the road, because then you don't want the he said, she said.
Right.
So you just listen, remember, record.
Yeah, because it's not even customary, almost required, but you want to at least exchange information.
Well, that should
for more minor accidents, I would imagine.
Yeah, so that should happen in the presence of law enforcement.
Really? So if I just bump into you at a stop sign and I dent your bumper?
If you're planning on calling law enforcement, then you should wait to exchange information when they arrive.
Okay, now that,
Yeah, if let's say you're in a parking lot and somebody taps you and maybe there's just a little indent, you don't want to wait 2 hours for the police report. You know you're not hurt. They know they're not hurt. Worst case scenario, you might be at $1,000 bumper exchange. Yeah, just take pictures. Take a picture of the license plate, the person's driver's license, and their insurance card, and you're gold. Then you call your insurance company and you report it and let them handle everything.
Okay. So we were talking about motorcycles and your, again, passion. Do you have any recommendations for the people who are looking forward to, say, this year's Leesburg Bike Fest?
Yeah, get ready for a good bike fest.
Really? You think so?
I think a lot of us are just dying for, the bike fest atmosphere.
Sure.
We miss it. We missed Daytona. We're going to miss Daytona again in October. And, Leesburg is, if you ask me, it is better than Daytona. You get a better group of people. It's
really?
It's the locals. We know each other. It's just nice to hang out. You get local talent. Of course, the food's always great.
Oh, yeah.
And it's Leesburg is great. That's my favorite one each year.
All right, Michael, we're about to wrap up the show. I'm going to give you the opportunity for any last-minute thoughts that you might want our audience to be aware of.
Well, I'd like people to know that a lawyer is an incredible resource. Even if you called our office for a free consultation on an accident and didn't hire us, you're going to be in a better position because you're going to be armed with a lot more information than before you came to see me.
Sure.
Now, certainly we want to represent you and we want to work on your case for you. But, having a relationship with a lawyer is a little bit personal. And if you ever speak to a lawyer and you're not comfortable coming out of that conversation saying, yeah, this law firm is really going to help me, go talk to another one. So if you come to my office and, we get along and you like the things that I had to say, let me represent you. But if you're not, you got to be comfortable with your lawyer. And I would say, go talk to another one, see how that goes. And if it goes well, you sign up there. But if you find out that actually we're going to do a better job, then come back to us.
Of course. I think that's sound advice. You got to feel comfortable.
Absolutely.
Right? Well, Michael, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day and sharing some of this information with us.
It's my pleasure.
And that'll wrap it up for this edition of Red Cup Conversations. I've been your host, Kris Poliquin, and we'll see you next time.